Hello, guys, welcome to this podcast, Everyday Talkies, which ironically does not come out daily. I am Anshul and I talk about random things to random people, majorly about life, perspectives, and thinking process. It's like an interview, or let's say more of a conversation with one or two guests about random topics that interest us. To be really honest, it's just a way to reduce my inhibitions in talking to people. So come join me and enjoy. Today, I have my cousin as the guinea pig to my podcast Everyday Talkies. Now, this is a podcast where I want to keep things casual, talking to random people. Now, not random right now because I want to test it with familiar faces, somebody whom I relate to. So, he has graciously accepted to be the first guest in this podcast. We want to keep this in anonymous nature because I want to talk to random people as well down the line and know about their perspectives in life. But now I will shut up and give him the platform to introduce himself. Tell us his fake name.
Thank you, Anshul, for introducing me in such a gracious manner. I don't think so. There could have been a better introduction from you. For today, I think you can call me Stephen, and I think you already know the reason behind it. Stephen, because of Stephen Hawking, is someone very close to my heart. Even after his demise, I think his legacy still lives on with us. I choose to believe that what he has done for people like me and a lot of other people, it'll stay on, or as long as human civilization is there, or at least humans are in the form of Homo sapiens. Like there have been some low points in my life when I was distressed and I didn't know what to do. Learning about his life and thinking about how much more difficulty he had to face, and compared to what I had to face, it was huge. And still he went through it. He overcame those problems, or he found a way to deal with them, like from his disease in the form of ALS, where doctor gave him just a few years to live, but he lived on to a very old age of 75, which even many healthy people fail to do. And then he had some problems and issues in his personal life as well, in his with his family, but still he found a way to overcome them and become the person we know him to be.
Yeah, I think he is, I think, one of the first people that I also got inspired by while venturing into the realm of space, astronomy, science, and physics, and all of that. I have his entire collection of books. I think I've missed his last one, so I'm trying to get my hands on that one. But then my collection will be complete. But yeah, he's an amazing individual. And following that, I want to, know on how did you enter this field of science and astronomy and things like that. Like, how did you come into this venture?
Before I start answering that, I just need to add on some things on your book collection of Stephen Hawking. I didn't have any books of Stephen. I used to borrow the books from you, read it, and give it back to you because you were fond of collecting the books. But fortunately, I bought the last book which he wrote, and I have that book with me. So in a sense, we both complete each other. Do you agree with me?
Yes, absolutely, absolutely.
Okay, coming back to your question on how did I venture into the realm of science and astronomy, I think most people at some point in their life undergoes certain phase when they have existential crisis, or at least people I know goes through them. So maybe I am friends and acquainted with people who actually go through it, and people who go through it are actually fond of talking about that with. So I had a similar experience back in class 3. I think when I was about 9 or 10 years of age. Like I come from a Hindu household family where it is a custom or a tradition where every member gets up in the morning, and the first thing after cleaning themselves is to offer a small prayer to an idol which is placed in a very visible space in the household where everyone can see and go and visit it whenever they want. So that is the first thing they do in the morning. Being born in a Hindu household, I adapted the same tradition and customs. So I used to worship every day. But when I was of 10 years of age, one day I asked my mother and my grandmother who created this world, and they gave me the answer that God created us. And then my counter question was, who created God? And they gave me the reply that this is something you should not bother yourself with. It is a concern of God, and he will choose to find answers to that. And this question came to my mind because we were introduced to solar system in our school, and I was quite fascinated by it. I even ordered books on the physics of suns and moon back in class 4 itself. So for me, the universe spanned only across the solar system and not beyond that. that is what I imagined the entire universe to be. I didn't connect the stars in the sky with actually being present in the universe. I thought that there was nothing, and out of nothing, suddenly God appeared, and He started stretching the space, and that space becomes solar system. That is the like mental visual images that I created in my mind, and this is very very similar to what Big Bang actually is, like the theory of Big Bang, which has been proposed and being contested worldwide. So that is how I got into astronomy, and I've been fascinated by astronomy since then. Like I had a encyclopedia DVD, and I like browsed through the entire DVD one summer when I was about 13 or 14 years of age. Then I had interactions with my physics teacher in class in high school, and things went from there to there. And then I had a great cousin like you who was also interested in the same stuff as me, and so like we could exchange ideas. You could lend me the books which you bought, and so I was able to build on that interest. But unfortunately, I didn't pursue science as a career, which I regret sometimes. But I made some decisions which was maybe not that well informed, and so I actually entered into the realm of business and the corporate enterprises. So these are two very distinct, universes for me. During the day when I'm working over them, my thought processes are different. I have to focus over them. But when I come back home, I'm more relaxed and calm and composed because I can, start watching videos on space, learn about the most new stuff which is being discovered, or maybe just take up a camera, set up it in at terrace, and click photos of planets. And like recently, I started capturing photos of nebulas as well.
Yeah, I think we should talk about that later because I think that's a very wide topic which I really want to bring it up for me to learn as well as for somebody who might be listening and interested as a whole. But before that, I want to thank you for introducing me because from the early memories that I have, I think you were the one who inspired me into this realm of science and astronomy, and I think I pursued it relentlessly, and I think that was one of the major common things that we had, and I think we still have while talking, because every time we start talking, this is the only thing that we end up talking about, be it space, astrophotography, and recently about black holes for some reason. So now moving into the more recent hobby that you have gained, that is astrophotography, and where you have captured the moons, planets, and things like that. So please enlighten us with this newfound knowledge and hobby that you have cultivated.
I feel very honored when you tell me that I had an influence on you, because to have an influence on even a single person is a big deal for me. Thank you for accepting that, and I'm grateful that you accepted that. Moving on to your question, we were planning a trip abroad and we bought a camera, but the camera didn't have a good very good pixel qualities, but it had a very it had the best zoom in the market. It has an optical zoom of about 83x if I remember correctly. So at that time we didn't have the knowledge on how to make use of this zoom. But few years ago we changed our house. In our new house, the surrounding neighborhood is quite serene and tranquil. Like we have a lake in front of our house, and there's not so much of buildings around, so it is relatively calm and a quiet place. And the lights are also very limited, not too much of light pollution. And one evening I was just strolling in the terrace and I gazed up, because I used to believe that we can't see stars from city. So I just gazed upwards and I just saw that I could see a few stars, and I was fascinated that I'm actually seeing stars, because up till then I only used to learn about stars from YouTube videos and watching maybe photos of Hubble's telescope, and I was quite fascinated. And at the same time I started capturing photos of birds in our vicinity, because there's a lake and diversified life in this particular ecosystem, if we call that. So the birds I've never seen before, I've never heard about, they frequently visited this our neighborhood. And so because that camera had such a good zoom, I started capturing photos of those birds, like candid images, because in some sense it brought some peace and calmness to me, because I had the complete control over it. Like these two things grew independently. I was capturing photos of birds and I just started stargazing. Then I invited you over one night for a sleepover, and so that we could just gaze at the stars and talk about our existence. And we had a very clear night sky on that particular day. That is the first time I took the camera upstairs, I think. We tried to capture the image of the moon with our camera, and so we thought that okay, moon is quite close, so we will be able to capture it. Then after a few months passed, I started seeing Jupiter and Saturn in the night sky. Like I thought that maybe it is possible to capture photos of Jupiter and Saturn, but I failed miserably. And I was quite deterred that maybe this camera is not that good, and I have to get a telescope if I want to get good photos of planets and maybe other deep space objects. But I thought I should search on the internet if there's some tricks through which I can actually capture the photos of planets in my camera itself, so that I don't have to buy a telescope, because I was planning on moving out of the city, and investing into telescope didn't seem a very good idea to me at that point of time. it also requires a quite of maintenance and keeping it in middle of a city where the humidity is very high. If I move out of the city, it will be very difficult for me to get the telescope maintained because no one in my family is interested in astronomy apart from me. Then I searched for some tricks on the internet and actually found a video which was very helpful. And it took multiple attempts to actually get the photos of Saturn and Jupiter. So over the span of 1 week, like the photos are not that good. Like it is not that clean. The pixels are not that great, but the images are distinct and you can actually identify that okay, this is Jupiter and this is Saturn. So I started clicking photos of that, and then I used to capture the night sky in my phone camera. Pixels of the phone camera is much better than that camera, and after editing it on Lightroom in my phone, like you could see maybe scores of stars, sometimes even hundreds of stars in that particular photo, and that became a fascinating thing for me. So I just started following the paths of the stars and the planets. One night I was just gazing at the stars and I saw that Orion Nebula is setting. And so I just brought my camera upstairs because the night sky was very clear. I actually started capturing Venus, but I was bored with it because, okay, I captured Venus, but I didn't want to keep on capturing Venus. So I just pointed the camera towards Orion and I can actually see that, okay, there are 3 dots and one of those dots must be the nebula because I've seen the images on where the nebula actually is. I don't know if it was a serendipitous affair, but yeah, I captured nebula and I edited it on Lightroom and I just uploaded it on my social media.
I think it was one of the most beautiful pictures I've ever seen because apart from the images from the space telescopes and on books, I had never heard of anybody who had clicked photos, probably in my knowledge, who had done this. And even before that, when you had clicked the photo of Jupiter with its 4 moons, you were the Galileo of this era for me because I think that is how I remember Galileo by, and that is how I will remember you by as well. I think that is one of the most coolest hobbies that you have ever had, and I feel very jealous when I'm not there to experience this moment when you're capturing this.
Actually, to my amazement, a lot of my acquaintances were also fascinated when I started uploading these photos on social media because to them also, like capturing astronomy objects from SETI is a myth. Like you can't do that. And I got messages from a few people with whom I've not talked with in maybe more than a decade, and they just text me out of the blue that how did you manage to capture this? Like how do you track this? I have a telescope, but I can never see planets because I don't know how to track them, or I have an application, but I don't know how to use that application on the phone, or just out of random that I can see this object in the night sky. Which object is that? Can you tell me more about stargazing? So even I think I also got you into stargazing after I started.
Yeah, that is true. I didn't know you could see stars from the city night sky. I only thought that we could just blame the atmosphere with the city pollution, the light pollution that it created. But then you showed me that there was a way to actually look at stars and actually capture such beautiful images. And I think just for everyone who's listening, there's this great app which I think both of us use. Is called the Star Walk 2 to identify stars, planets, comets. I think I recently got a link from him stating that there's a comet coming in. It will be one of the brightest in the next month, I think mid-May. So I will be on a lookout of that just to have a small chance of seeing that comet because unfortunately I have not seen a comet in my entire life.
To make you more jealous, I am planning on capturing Andromeda Galaxy next.
Whoa, that would really be amazing, and I would be doubtful if that is possible.
But I think I can make it possible, and the chances, like after capturing Nebula, I am quite confident and optimistic that I'll be able to do that because I have to keep the optimism up because of that only I was able to capture the Orion Nebula. It might not be a grand or a beautiful image. It might just be a fudge in the night sky, but I'll try to capture it. And not only that, I'm also planning on capturing an object which is 2 billion light years away. It's a quasar. I don't remember the scientific name of that quasar. I'm also planning on capturing that. So I'll just find when they are like perfectly overhead in the night sky so that I can actually capture it, and I'll try to do that. Even if it doesn't work out, I'll get a camera, but I'll get a telescope and I'll do that.
Well, that would really be amazing. Something 2 billion light years away. Am I saying it wrong? Whoa, that would really be, amazing if that happens because when we were talking about the Orion Nebula, I think it's around 1400 light years away. So we were talking about this funny joke that if there is any life out there and they're looking out at us, they'll be looking at some nomads moving around Earth having no technological advancement because they're looking in history. And I think that's the best part about space and astronomy, what I feel, because everything that you look at is in past. You're not looking at the present. Even your sun, even our sun that we have, it's 8 minutes into the past. do you have any tips for somebody who's starting out new in astrophotography? Because I remember you started with just your phone camera, then a normal camera, and then you used these small tricks you learned from YouTube and your experience, and you could identify these stars, planets, moons, and then now nebulas. So any tips that you could share to me as well if I wanted to start tomorrow, or to somebody who might be interested?
The first tip I would give is that if you're really interested in astrophotography, maybe you could start keeping a track of when the planets come up, when the planets set down, their orbital path, not with 100% accuracy, but have a sense when the planets are about to come and when the planets will set up, which time of the year will they come up and which time of the year you can't see them because they rise in the morning along with the sun. So have a sense of that and identify the deep space objects. Like, you should have an idea what deep space objects actually are, because if you don't know what a quasar is, you don't know what a nebula is, you won't ever be fascinated to capture those images. You first need to have a sense of how fascinating and grand those objects are. Like, nebulas are stellar nursery where stars are born. If you don't know those facts, you won't have a fascination to capture those objects. So first you need to build those fascination or amazement that you want to capture those objects, and after that have an instrument which actually enables you to see those objects. Because I've never worked with a telescope, so I can't guide you on which telescope will be best for you, because once I buy a telescope, I'll actually explore what kind of telescopes there are and which will be the best for me. What should the focal length, the length of the lenses, the length of the telescope, what kind of telescope should I buy, which will help me actually see the objects which I have not been able to see with my camera. So understand that which instrument will work best for you. Like, are you interested only in the planets? Then even a small telescope will work for you, because planets are relatively very close to you and they are very bright when they are visible. So even a small backyard telescope will be sufficient, and you will be able to see those planets. I don't know how you can combine camera with telescopes. I'll have to look into that. So if you're planning on buying a telescope, see how you can integrate cameras with the telescope, so that even along with looking into those objects, you can actually capture those objects with great precision and with very good picture quality. Keep this in mind and make sure that you post them on social media so that you get some external validation, which we all seek. So you continue on this pursuit that you want to actually capture deep space objects.
The last point is really important, to show it off in social media for your other friends to be jealous. Moving aside from that topic, digressing into a more career oriented line. Like, I know that you have always been interested in space and astronomy and science, and as you already spoke, you ventured into the field of commerce, into the field of business. And I just wanted to ask you how difficult or how easy it is to follow a career path which is very different from your core interests, first of all, and does your interests and career really have to match? Because these are the common questions that I have, and probably lots of people who are going through this phase where they're either in high school or just graduating and rethinking their career choices, probably. So any advice for them, and even for me?
I don't think so. I'm in the best position to actually give this advice, because I have made a mockery of my own career. That is what I believe. But it all depends on where you are. If you are in a place with limited opportunities, you don't have much of a chance to actually explore all there is to explore. Or maybe you can create a new opportunity for yourself, but that rarely happens. So you have to be more pragmatic in your approach and first understand what are the opportunities which lies ahead of you. If your interest and your career align, I don't think so anything can match that, because for me it is difficult to understand the basics of business. My business language is not that great. I would agree to that. So, but I believe that in India, venturing into physics would have been limited for me. The opportunities are very limited. So I would have to be the very best in that. And frankly speaking, I don't believe I would have been the very best in that particular field. Even with all the interest, there's a limit to my potential on what I can do and what I can recreate and what I can explore and come up with theories and ideas. So maybe it all worked out well for me. I have a very well-established foundation of business in my own family, where all my uncles and my father, they're all businessmen, and they have laid out a very good foundation for us to build upon. So if you can build upon that, we can help a lot of other people. When you are into business, you actually create employment. So in a way, you are helping mankind. That is what I choose to believe. But if you are in high school, or if you are trying to identify which career path is best for you, first understand there are a lot of things which you don't know. So when you are in school, you are being taught about doctors and maybe chemists and maybe engineers, or there are limited professions which you're taught about, but you never taught about them in detail. So maybe you learn a topic and you find that fascinating, maybe you can explore that. Maybe it can be as mundane as going from one place to another. But there's a lot of way to explore that. That Uber came up with a solution for commuting. Then Elon Musk has come up with a solution in Hyperloop. There are bullet trains. So these developments came and these are very fascinating. Like because we don't know a lot of things. If you find some fascinating or dig deeper into that, see if you're ready to work into that day in and day night. When you get up in the morning, you shouldn't be thinking of I have to go to work again. But when you get up in the morning, that you know that there's some challenges and problems which lies ahead of you, and you need to solve those, and you're quite excited to solve those challenges and problems or tasks, and you're actually getting paid for it. In Hindi, there's a proverb, "Sone pe suhaga." So if that happens, that will be well and good. So if you think that this is the best for me, first understand what those things are and try to explore different ideas and domains before you decide that you want to tread on this path. And even if you tread on a particular path, you can change it at any time in your life. Some paths may be easy to diversify into or take a detour, but some path might be easy, some path might be difficult. It all depends on what appeals to you and what makes sense to you and what you can relate to.
Yeah, I think this is very sound advice to anybody. But I take solace in the fact that if some of these physics theories are true, I don't know, there's no test for it, but there is an alternate universe where probably you are one of the greatest physicists in that universe, discovering the secrets and helping mankind in general, and I am your partner there. So I take solace in that fact that there is some version of me doing something fruitful at this point of time. But yeah,
I think you hold me up in a very high position. You are being very modest with me right now, so thanks for that. But I don't take solace in that fact because I hate the fact that it is someone else. Because I and him, we are two separate identities. Even if we are we are similar but in two different universes. So I am not him and he is not me.
Okay, now we are going into the intricacies of sci-fi. We shall hold that off for our next episode or something. But it's amazing digressing into these topics. We always end up talking about sci-fi, science, and all of this from anywhere. We start with career and always end up here. But none of our conversations can be complete without talking about Elon Musk. I think he is one of the visionaries that you are highly inspired by. I know that you are reading his biography right now, and I would like to know what are the new things that you have learned about him recently.
Before reading his biography, my knowledge about him was very limited. But his biography gave me a very intimate perspective into his life and his imagination and his visions. He knows how to get things done. I can give you a very small example. I wouldn't call it small, but it was a very small example in the book itself, where the author of the biography mentions that Elon Musk wanted a part of the space rocket. So Elon Musk wanted a part of the rocket to be made in at a very cheap price, like cutthroat price. Those parts generally cost about $1 million. This is what the author wrote. But Elon Musk wanted to get that made in $10,000. The author jokingly mentions that in the dinner parties of the prominent space organizations, they used to spend $10,000 on dinners just to discuss from which vendor they need to buy that part. And Elon Musk wanted to get that done in $10,000 itself. And he searched for a guy, found a guy. I don't know if luck factored him or that guy knew how to get that done in $10,000. And that part was actually made in $10,000, about $10,000 or just a little higher than $10,000. So cutting the price of a part from $1 million to just $10,000. It is just 1% of the price when you put that into perspective. Yeah, he's being able to achieve those visions of what he has because of small things like that, which coalesce to become something very grand, like Tesla, which is revolutionizing the car industry, automobile industry, or SpaceX, which is revolutionizing the space industry. The competition is so intense, we can get satellites into orbit at a very cheap price, which is something which used to cost millions of dollars, now can be done in a few $100,000. So there are things which like that which is revolutionizing. Now he has come up with Hyperloop, which will maybe revolutionize the transport system. Starlink, which will we were facing a lot of lag in our initial recordings, which might be reduced if the Starlink comes into effect. He has the grand vision of setting up a colony on Mars, and all of his accomplishment till now has been kind of directed towards that. Because in Mars you won't have fossil fuels, so even though Tesla solves the problem of energy on Earth itself, having electric vehicles on Mars will be a very huge valuable asset, because you can just harness the solar power over there. Although it is very limited, but you can harness the solar power over there, and you can recharge your whatever gadgets you are using. Maybe you are using an automobile, so you can recharge that and you can transport very easily. Then he's making Hyperloop. Maybe he's planning on establishing Hyperloop in Mars itself. Then, if you want to have communication on Mars, you need to have a system like Starlink, because you can't lay down miles and thousands of miles of cables on Mars. You need to have an alternative to that, and the model of Starlink is the best alternative you have. Then he started having reusable rockets, because if you want to land on Mars, first you need to know how to land the rockets back on Earth. So all of his accomplishment has been in some way related to setting up a colony on Mars and making humans multi-planetary species. I don't think so there'll be a better or a bigger achievement for mankind in our lifetime.
That is so true. I would have never thought of that before. All of his previous accomplishments or his ventures are ultimately leading to this one common goal, which is actually quite, good. Even as a business model, he has this incremental growth policy where I think, though Tesla is, I'm not sure whether it's in a profitable stage or not. I think SpaceX is, but he's investing from one company to the other. Like, we usually joke around that he's the Iron Man of our age, probably in real life. But let's see how things pan out. And I wish somewhere down the line, I think even I think everyone wishes when we talk that we can contribute to his plans or in general for the advancement of mankind and to make it an interplanetary species. If for some way they have this no check free volunteership for people to go on Mars, I'll sign up as soon as possible. I think that would be my first thing to do. But if they go on checking for physical health, I think I will be the first one to be rejected. So
I think more than physical health, you need to have the mental stamina and the vigor to go through it, because you will be in isolation for 8 months, confined to a small spaceship, and you won't be able to communicate instantly, because once you are at a distance, it will take some time for the communication to reach. Because I think the distance between Earth and Mars it's about 15 or 20 light minutes. We won't be able to have instant communication then. You'll have to record the message. It'll come in 15 minutes, and I'll have to record the message for the reply and then send it. It'll take another 15 minutes to reach you. So there are a lot of factors. Even though you need the physical strength and the toughness, along with that, you need to be mentally sound and mentally capable of doing that. Because the main fear of all the scientists and all the people who are planning on setting up a colony in Mars is, during the travel from Earth to Mars, there's a chance that someone will have a mental breakout, and if that happens, it will have a detrimental effect on the entire group. That is more important than physical. That is what I believe. And along with that, you need to have knowledge about a lot of things which you don't. You need to know about medicine, you need to know about physics, you need to know about chemistry, and you need to know the intricate details of that. So it'll be a very tough task, like for the initial astronauts, or the forefathers of Mars, the Adam and Eve of Mars will not be some fictional characters. They will be real people just like us, but having much greater capabilities or the will than us.
I wish in my lifetime I see that happening, and it would be one of the greatest accomplishments mankind would have had. I think we have already crossed our initial threshold, which I had planned, but it's always amazing to talk to you. And I would like to close, this topic out by bringing in our current scenario, the pandemic that we are facing, the lockdown we are facing. I think though it has had a detrimental effect on the whole world, it somewhere gave me a push to start this podcast finally, which I have been planning for a year and procrastinating day by day. But I think this finally gave me the push to connect with people I know and talk about things that we generally talk about, and things about life, thinking process, and space, for all the things that we have. So yeah, how about you? How are you tackling this lockdown, and what are some of the content that you're watching right now?
To be honest, this lockdown has went by in a jiff for me. I didn't have to, think, what should I do? I have to spend so much of time indoor, because I've spent 6 months preparing for an exam by just staying indoors. So that was a few years ago, but I got used to it. Right now, I'm working on an application, a vocabulary application. I launched an application 2 years ago, and I've been planning on launching an update for the past 1.5 years now. And like you said, the procrastinating is very ingrained in us. So I've been procrastinating that, but I got to that. I had some office work which I needed to take care of. I worked on that. Then I took time to read some books. I actually completed that book on Elon Musk, his biography, because it was taking a lot of time, because I had to, read every line of that very meticulously. I didn't want to miss a single thing about him. And I started another book on how the future for humans can shape up to be by Yuval Noah Harari. So I'm coming up with different ways. Now we are working on this podcast of yours. Like, it is very exciting for me as well. I actually got like we played some games at home or some virtual games as well with people who are spread across the globe.
Somehow, probably this will bring us closer as human beings and make us more responsible. But thank you so much for being the guinea pig again to my experiments. Hopefully, this continues and I call you back again. We will circle back to you after 4 or 5 guests soon. I don't have too many people lining up to be in this podcast. But yeah, this has been really amazing and thank you so much.
I'm looking forward to that, and I think I can be your permanent co-host as well. So if you're open to that idea, I don't mind.
See, this is the problem with him. He knows I can't say no. I'll probably take him up on this offer. So yeah, probably. You never know. You never know. We can have that, and it would really be amazing. But again, thank you, and thank you for spending 3 or 4 hours just to get the setup right, just to make all my editing challenges be fruitful at some point or the other.
It was a pleasure for me, and actually I learned a lot. I came to know about a lot of different applications which I never explored or understood. But yeah, I even got to know how audios are edited thanks to you.
Well, I didn't know audio could be this complicated, but it's actually been amazing. It's great to work on this podcast because it gives me a chance to talk to new people, talk to people with different ideas, and gain some insights about the world, about the general people's thinking. Because usually, when we hear other podcasts, I missed the touch of common man, I feel, because it's usually very focused. It's usually very topic driven, which I think it's great because it gives us an instructional value. But this is something which I wanted to do, to have some personal growth out of this, and more than that, to get to know the world more. So I think, yeah, that's been wonderful. So thank you, and I will catch up with you again soon. Bye bye.
Looking forward to it. Thank you very much for having me. Bye bye.
Thank you to all the listeners. I'll catch up with you again soon with someone new and lots of interesting discussions. So, bye.